Okay. It's taking a bit. I don't know why. Okay. Well, everybody, we are, I think. Oh, my goodness, I've got no idea what's happening here, everyone. This is what happens when you have a new, well, it's not a new computer. I'm sorry, everybody. I had to reboot my computer and it's caused all sorts of hassles this morning. So thank you for those who have been patient and are now watching us live on Angel Heart Radio. Wherever you are, if you would like to take part in today's show with comments and questions, you need to be following us on the Angel Heart Radio Facebook page, because then we can see what you have written. Most of you know I'm Annette McCoy. I'm very pleased to be with you. And with me today, as usual at this time of the month, is Rosemary Butterworth. And today we're very, very fortunate to have one of her sons here, Peter Whitfield. Welcome to you both.
Thank you, Annette.
Before we get started, I need to remind everybody that these shows should never replace your legal, medical, nor professional advice, nor your own sound judgment. Today, we are focusing on wonderful things, are we not, Rosemary? We're talking about families and how do we connect families through love, peace, and harmony. And Peter, I believe you're rather, well, I don't believe in experts, so to say, but you've certainly got some very wise thoughts on this matter as your mother.
Well, thank you. I'd just like to read some of Sai Baba's words to start off. Sai Baba, as you know, was a wonderful guru. And he says, if there is righteousness in the heart, there will be beauty in character. When there is beauty in character, there will be harmony in the home. When there is harmony in the home, there will be order in the nations. When there is order in the nation, there will be peace in the world. Aren't they beautiful words?
Beautiful indeed. Yes.
Yes. And because we're talking about families, I'm very thrilled today that my son Peter could join us. And to make him laugh, we found his story that he wrote for Shining Bright magazine way back in 2006. And he wrote a story on happy families. And he started it by saying, happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way, by Leo Tolstoy. And I was rereading this just before we came on. And he said, to help enact love, open a family love account. Each day, everybody is asked to make daily lodgements of affection, affirmation, praise, gratitude, support, and sacrifice. We should seek out and find little ways to express our love on a daily basis. The question for each member of the family is, are they taking more than they are giving? Families become rich by giving and are bankrupted by taking. Do you remember writing that, Peter?
Well, thank you, Rosemary, Mum. It is lovely to be here. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I have a recollection of writing that. One of the great things about quoting somebody like Tolstoy, and that's the opening line of Anna Karenina, is that they say things that last, and they usually last because they're based on fundamental universal principles. And if it's true that all happy families are the same and all unhappy families are different in every way, so they have all their problems and differences, and you reflect and think back about that, And you look at a happy family and you go, yeah, like they share in the love, they share in sacrifice, they share in a thing called surrender, where you give up your own personal desires and wants for the greater good. And then you have a happy family. But in unhappy families, everybody's miserable in their own little way. And I think that defines or shows that there is this universal principle. And I think the topic of today, which was love, peace, and harmony, wasn't it, in the family?
Yes.
Is a really good start anyway, and to show that in families that abound in love and they abound in service and they abound in this compassion for each other, that it's something that we can practice, and that love actually is a verb, it's a doing word. So that we show our love by doing stuff. And the little love account was somebody suggested that you can, if every member in the family says, well, what have you added to the account today? Well, I said Johnny he took my ruler. Is that adding or subtracting? Well, you look very nice today, dear. Is that adding or subtracting to the account?
Well, loving families, I mean, this morning was a classic example, wasn't it? Because, Peter, you were assisting your mum and then you reached out to your brother who was able to assist as well. So that was
Yes.
a fabulous example. Mm.
It was too, because, my brother was really doing something else and he had to actually put that aside and go, I've now got to go and help my mum get online, to teach her how to operate a computer, and that's that big square thing sitting in front of your mum.
Right. Thank you, Peter.
You press that button, and but it was lovely. And then what actually the experience is that in surrendering what he was doing, he actually feels this harmony and love and joy, because love is a doing word, and that's what he had to do.
Mm-hmm. That's what we forget, that love is a verb, is a doing word.
Mm-hmm.
And we think of more of love as receiving it, right? As something we get, something is given to us, right? We are so loved, I often say, by the universe or whatever. But I love to think that love is a verb. And what can we do for someone else?
Mm.
And the surrender, as Mark just did to help me get on, and it's just, and that's what families are all about, is how we
can be. And I like to look at the positive, Rosemary, because as Peter said before, sadly, there are dysfunctional families out there as well. And I think what we're suggesting today is that we can all take responsibility, and especially if I'm in a dysfunctional family, then what can I do about it? How can I take little steps to improve the family? And of course, it's that doing word, the love.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a client ring me yesterday, because I do a lot of phone sessions, and she was very upset. Her mother still won't let her visit her because she's not vaccinated. And she said, but I've had COVID, I got it. And she still won't let me see her. And I haven't seen her now for nearly 6 months. And I miss her terribly. I used to talk to her or see her nearly every day. And the first thing that came to mind to say to her is to stop arguing with her and listen. And ask her a question. What is she frightened of then? And she said, oh. I said, have you asked her that? She said, no. Well, listen to her voice and you can hear that she's frightened of something. And so I think listening is very important. And Peter often talks about this. How do we listen to another person? How do we listen to our children? Or are we too busy? You know, say, yes, 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 yes. I'll talk to you later. Yes, I'm busy now. Those sort of things. How do we listen? Peter, this is one of your topics.
Well, what we've found in for those who don't know, I teach at the School of Philosophy and Economic Science out of London, and one of the practices that we have is we do this little in one of the courses. There's this practice where we sit and we give the other person our full attention. So one person will speak about something they love and they're passionate about, and whilst they're doing that, the person who's listening to them has their mobile phone and they have to look up all the properties of concrete. And and then, you know, I mean, how long you need to set it for and what do you add to the concrete to make it, you know, structurally more stable or something like that, or how many passengers were on the Titanic when it sank. And so they're looking this up, and then we swap it around. We say, okay, now listen to the person with your full attention without any distractions whatsoever. And without reservation, every single person says there is so much joy in giving the other person your full attention. It's so much better than looking up when Cary Grant was born, or what was his real name. Oh, what was his real name? Does anyone know? You know, and the mind goes off and thinks, I've got to find out what Cary Grant's real name was. And now you can just ask Google about it or something. But if you actually bring yourself back to what the person is saying and listening to the space between their words, or listen to the very last word that they say, the person not only who is being listened to experiences great joy and love, but the person who is doing the listening also experiences joy and love and freedom and bliss and stillness and happiness. Which raises the question of, is it better to give love or to receive love?
Mm-hmm. That is a very, very good question, because quite often, Peter, we forget about ourselves. It's wonderful to give, but we have to remember to give to ourselves and to gratefully receive from others.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I would suggest that in this dysfunctional family, when someone is saying, oh, this person won't do this for me, or this person's being unreasonable, etc., if the real joy is in giving love, and we talk about unconditional love, you know, it's not the love of, well, I'll love you if you take out the garbage and then I'll do the dishes, you know, or this person doesn't do this for me. There was one lady in the philosophy group, and we were practicing this thing called what would a wise person do? And she walked into the kitchen, and the cupboard above the stove was left open, and the cupboard next to the fridge was left open. And she said, my husband always leaves the cupboard doors open. Just like, you know, he drives me nuts. He never closes the cupboard doors. And you can see these big issues that affect families that come in here. And she said, well, you know, what would a wise person? The whole group said, well, obviously you would close the cupboard doors. And then she said, but you know, then it occurred that a wise person would not only close the cupboard doors, but they would close them as an act of love for her husband. So she then just went, and instead of being so frustrated and irate, I mean, the husband probably doesn't know that he's left the cupboard doors open. And there's no intent, of course. No, oh no, I'm going to make her suffer now. I'm going to leave this one open. It's going to be really painful for her, and I'm going to leave this one open. She's going to, like, you know, she's going to hit the roof, and I'm going to feel so happy. But you don't. I mean, he's just walking around oblivious. But if she can close them as an act of love for him, then she actually experiences the joy and happiness of service and surrender. So
That's
and
lovely.
the argument that it's better to get that the actual joy of love is in doing the service, is in doing the act of loving. Whereas we all think, oh, I'm so unlovable. Nobody loves me when, my life is over. I was at my nephew's 19th birthday party. It's my mother's grandson, one of her grandsons. And he was his 19th party, and he'd had a few sherbets. So by the end of the night, he was really quiet. And he's very, very keen on this girl. And by the end of the night, he said to his mother, Mum, I love her, Mum. I'm going to give her a call and tell her how much I love her. And her mother said, I don't think that's going to work. So here's a young man who's going to profess his undying and devotional love to the girl, but it's not going to do it for her, which actually highlights for her that the receiving of love isn't the big thing. So, if Fred down the road tells you that he loves you, it really might not do it for you. But then if you're a young mother and you've got a young baby and you see the baby there, and it doesn't give you anything back. Like, you don't say to her, I'm going to love you if you can actually say mama. Or, you get a little bit older and, it takes its first few steps and it fails. And you go, oh, you silly little duffer. Now, you're supposed to walk one foot in front of the other, and I'm actually not going to love you until you succeed in walking. But as a child, young baby, all it does is just wee and poo and cry. And then you look at the mother who's just heart's completely open and it's pouring this love into the child. And the mother's in absolute bliss, just loving the little baby. Mm-hmm. It's the joy is in the giving of the love. And this is where having a love account in a family, where you write down, this is what this is the deposits I made today. In my family, so my brother Mark can say, in my family today, I helped Mum get on the internet for Angel Heart Radio. That was my little bit of love that I gave to the family.
Yes. I love that story, Peter, that the lady could shut the cupboard doors as an act of love for her husband. Because I personally, Peter told me that story, Annette, and I was thinking of the last thing that John was irritating me with. Like the minute you put the food on the table, then the boy's got to go to the toilet or something. You know what I mean? You're sitting there waiting. And when Peter told me that story, I thought, how many times do we get irate in a family at little things people do? And they don't do it purposely to annoy you or to upset you. They're just living their life, but it does annoy you. And Peter said to me, why hang on to those? Let it go, Mum. You can just sit there and wait as an act of love till he comes back to the table, or the little things. And that's been so helpful to me. And yesterday, Peter, I woke up and I was taught to always see what's wrong with the world. And I wonder how many of our listeners do this too. The newspapers always tell us what's wrong with the world. And Mum always told me, look at the weeds, get the weeds out of the garden, because she had a beautiful, perfect garden. She had a show garden. So I always see what's wrong with the world in my garden and talk about, oh, yes, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, oh, yes. And yesterday when I woke up after listening to what Peter said, I thought, I'm going to only think positive things. And I smiled for first, and John asked me, did you have a good night's sleep, love? And I said, yes, thank you. And I smiled. He said, oh, you look happy today. Because I smiled and he was sort of growling, where's breakfast? We're going to come in for breakfast, sort of thing. And he said, oh, you look happy today. And all day I did this. Change my thoughts as I saw them come in and change them to a positive one. Instead of saying, oh, look, it looks like it's going to rain, oh, dear, it's been a lovely day today. Just simple little things. And by night time, John said to me, dear, you've been lovely to be with today. I said, what? He said, your company's been lovely, because we worked in the garden together and different things. He said, your energy today has been so happy. It's been lovely being around you. Thank you, Peter.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, it's a lovely observation, but it's your practice. It's what we practice. And there's a lot of, and we practice on the little things. I mean, people say the universe is speaking to me, and it's speaking to us all the time. And you might go to the gym, you might have a personal trainer, and the personal trainer says to you, work harder, lift those legs higher, run faster. And you think to yourself, oh, he's really working me hard today. Oh, golly, I'm going to feel so great tomorrow. This is fantastic. And the harder he works you, the more money you give him. And you get this fantastic workout. And yet, for emotional, spiritual troubles we come up against as well, my life is over. I said, pass the salt and they pass the pepper. The bed's unmade again. Oh, no. I told you to be here at 3:00 and it's 3:07. And yet, if it was a complete stranger, to go to 3:15, 3:20, you'd say, they say, I'm really sorry. I'm like, oh, it's fine. I'm just watching the scenery and listening to the birds. It's great. But the person we love,
you're always late. You're always late.
Well, the interesting thing is when we say you don't love me, it's really saying I don't love myself. And this is where there is no such thing as miserable rain. And it's a lovely statement because they don't make rain. Rain doesn't care. It's not miserable. It's just rain. It's just condensation falling from the sky. But we look at it and we say, what a miserable day. But if you're Gene Kelly, you're singing and dancing in it. How can that possibly be? How can you possibly have the same day and one person's, my heart's full of love because I'm singing in the rain, and the other person, what a miserable day. Now that's to do with the state of the individual. And Jesus said, love thy neighbor as thyself. And the interesting thing he says there is that it's not actually saying that this is a good thing to do or it's a bad thing to do. He's saying this is actually what happens. So if you wake up in the morning and you love yourself, you love everybody else. If you see yourself as being old and overweight and miserable, then how do you see the rest of the planet? How do you see your loved one if that's how you see yourself? So and interestingly enough, the way to love yourself is through service of others. It's one of the best ways. Because you actually, when my brother gets online and helps mum, then he's freed of this little idea that says, well, I'm too important to go and help my mother. I mean, I don't think he said that, but, there's ideas come in. I'm just too busy. Oh, she's asked me again, it could be anything. But you actually free yourself of these ideas, these small ideas you have about yourself. Of being, I'm this miserable, limited, I don't want to get out of bed today person. And it's so much nicer to be good company to others.
Yes. Well, John told me last night I was lovely company all day. We've been married for decades, and I don't think I've ever heard that before.
Yeah, I mean, if you say to your spouse, you're such miserable company, what you're really saying is, I'm such miserable company. Yeah. I mean, have you ever met anybody who's boring? Anyone met someone who's boring? Do you know anybody who's really boring? They just drone on and on. You might be thinking that Peter Whitfield's really boring at the moment because he's droning on and on. But actually, the truth is The real boring thing is this little voice in your head that just goes on and on and on. And if you give the person your full attention, it doesn't matter what they're saying, they become interesting.
Mm. Yes.
You're making so much sense, Peter. And of course, it comes back to simplicity.
It does. It does. And we do need to wake up and pay attention to what's in front of us, because the universe does speak to us. But my view is that I'm still stuck on traffic jams and electric bills. Because, when the electric bills come in, the universe is saying one thing. And when there are always these opportunities, it's like, how do you know when it's time to hop on a bus?
When the bus is there.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, have you ever tried to hop on a bus before it's arrived?
No.
No. So when it arrives and the door opens, the universe says, hop on now. Yeah. So you hop on now. And then, you're cutting a tomato. And if you're not there, you don't realize the knife's blunt. But the tomato being squished, the universe is yelling at you, saying, please don't try and squish me anymore because I'm so blunt. One of my family members is renowned for having very blunt knives. Yes, mother. And I go and cutting the tomato, and it's screaming at me, please sharpen me. Like, it's just so. But if we don't pay attention to what's in front of us, then we I think we miss out on so many messages that we're being told.
Thank you.
Oh. And it's practice, as you said, Annette, it's practicing on the little things. These are the little things. It's like, we go through some emotional turmoil and we think, my life's over. And, you're sitting in a hot bath with a bottle of Pinot, listening to 80s love songs by requests and a tub of ice cream. It's all over. But there is a still small voice of wisdom that says, life's not meant to be miserable. And we feel, I'm suffering so much pain and all this stuff. But have you ever been hungry? Annette, Mum, have you ever been hungry?
Times.
Yeah. And have you felt hunger pain?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Okay. And have you said at that time, oh, my life's over, I've got hunger pains, I can feel it in my stomach. They're just going to be like, I've got a hunger pain.
No, I go to the fridge.
I need to go up in the bath with my 80s love songs and my tub of ice cream. No, you don't. Why don't you when you've got a hunger pain?
Because I go to the fridge and get some food.
Well, say you're not going to the fridge. Say, you've got to.
All right.
Say you're out on the road shopping.
Oh, right.
Well, no, but just, you still don't, your life's not over because you know that you will get food. You know this is a temporary situation. And as far as these emotional stuff we come up against, they are temporary. They're always temporary. I mean, life's temporary. So it's either going to be, there's not, bottom line is you drop the body and it's like taking off a tight shoe and it's absolutely safe, or you're going to have a good night's sleep, right? You're just not going to wake up from a good night's sleep. And nobody says, oh, I'm so scared of going to sleep tonight, because, everybody's quite happy not being here. And we're happy not being here because when you go to sleep, you let go of all this whole world, this burden that you carry around with you.
All day, yes.
All day long. Well, you build up over years and years and years.
And then I'd like to... Sorry, Peter.
No, go, Mum.
Now, I was just going to say, to ask Annette, I'd like to ask our listeners if anyone's got a question about life, about family, they would like to ask Peter to answer. Okay? Please go into the chat room and leave your question. Thank you. Thank you.
So is that something you're monitoring, Annette? You can see
It is, yes. I have the chat.
You have the power.
I can cut people off. It's really nice. It's a lovely way of knowing that, yes, we have people watching live. And I know that there are other people out there who choose not to be in the chat, but it's a wonderful feedback. We're very fortunate, aren't we, Peter, and Rosemary, with the communication today. I know because of the situation in the last 2 years, Rosemary turned to Zoom for a regular meditation, whereas it used to be something that was held in their home. And that meant that more people could take part. I have been able to join that group, whereas normally I wouldn't be able to. So again, it's how we look at something. It can appear a negative situation, and yet it doesn't have to be at all. There's always, I believe, a silver lining.
Yes. I agree totally. I mean, we sometimes it just floors me that the situation we find ourselves in at the moment is that we actually do have enough food in our bellies for the environments that we live in, and it's just so much gratitude for that. We don't have the political or religious oppression that prevents us from meeting in groups such as this. So, and never in the history of humanity, we also have the availability of those that have gone before us at our fingertips. So you can study the complete works of Plato in English. The people have actually translated them, or the Dhammapada, or any of the great literature and scriptures that have been around for centuries, just at the touch of a button. And all of this wealth of knowledge and information is available to us now so readily. And we can meet in groups of like-minded people as never before in the history of humanity. And yet, Love Island's on, so I better go and...
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong in Love Island, but it doesn't require much of practice. And this is where I think philosophy is and these types of groups are wonderful, because if it's encouraging practice to spread love and joy and help others, it is just a great thing that never in the history of humanity or that has been available.
Yeah. And it's practice that is so important. And it's what I forget to do sometimes.
No, really? But we have but we all do it. We have a thing called the awareness exercise in the philosophy school, which is just a mindfulness exercise, and I like to think of it as and it was introduced back in the 1950s, long before mindfulness and meditation, and it was and I like to think that this school of philosophy had a big influence on mindfulness right throughout the world, and so we practice the mindfulness exercise. And it's just a very simple exercise of coming into the present moment. And you come into the present moment through connecting with each of the senses. And by connecting with a sense, it brings you into the present moment, because there is this law that the senses only operate now, that you actually can't smell a flower tomorrow. The actual sensation of smelling a flower only happens now. You can't hear a clap yesterday. You can only hear it in the present moment. So that if you run through the sense of touch and taste you will notice that there's moisture in your mouth. And you may not have noticed until I said that, but that moisture in your mouth conveys a sense of taste. And then as you breathe in, there's a sense of smell. And the eyes only perceive color and form. If you name it, if you say, look, there's a bunch of flowers or something, well, then that's thinking about things. But the eyes only see where white ends and where brown begins. And the hearing, connecting with the sounds as they rise from stillness and they return to stillness. Now that exercise for just a couple of minutes is just such a wonderful pause. And the other day I was unpacking, had the kettle on. It was actually a month ago, but I had the kettle on and I was standing in my kitchen and I thought I should do the awareness exercise now while the kettle was boiling, which is just connect with the senses. And then I looked across and I saw that the dishwasher needed to be unstacked. And then I thought, oh, I don't need to do the awareness exercise because I'm a philosopher. Right? And then the realization that this idea I know stops you practicing. So because you think, oh, I don't need to do it because I'm a philosopher and I've done the exercise for so many times, it actually, that you get carried away with this idea about who you think you are, which is actually a very limiting belief. If you think you know, then you're in big trouble, right? Because your mind closes down and then you're not open to anything else. So the practice then was just to let go of this and then oh no, the dishwasher wasn't stacked for a whole 2 minutes, wasn't unpacked for a whole 2 minutes, and just rest. And there's a great story I'm reminded of which highlights the benefit of practice, particularly stillness and meditation. And that is that the woodcutter's story, you may have heard it, but there was two woodcutters. One was the apprentice and one was the teacher. And the apprentice had been apprentice for a while and he thought he was pretty good. And he said to the teacher, you know, I'm younger and fitter and I can chop down more trees than you can now. And he thinks he's better than the teacher. So the teacher said, okay, let's have a competition. So the next day they had a competition. So the apprentice went off to his part of the forest and the woodcutter went off to the teacher went off to his part of the forest. And they started. And after about an hour, the apprentice heard that the teacher stopped woodcutting. And the apprentice was a bit tired, but he thought, oh, he stopped. So he went harder and started rejuvenated. And then after about 15 minutes, he heard that the teacher had started again. So they went on like this for a while. And then at lunchtime, the apprentice says, I'm going to work right through lunch. And then the teacher stops. He stopped for half an hour. And after about another hour, well, after 15 minutes, the teacher started up again. The apprentice could hear it. And this went on. Like every hour he would stop. He stopped for the lunch break, etc. Anyway, they met back together at the end of the day. And the apprentice thought, oh, I've killed him. Like, I've been chopping all day. He was absolutely exhausted, but he was just like, there's no way that the master could have beaten me because there was all this time where he wasn't actually chopping wood. They counted up the logs and the teacher, of course, won. And the apprentice goes, well, how could you possibly have won? How could you possibly have beaten me when I heard you stopping right throughout the day? And the teacher said it was easy. Every time I stopped, I sharpened my axe.
I love it.
You may recall that one of the first rules, well, let me ask you, what's the first rule of English grammar that you learn in grammar? After you've learned words, and what's the first rule of English grammar? I'm testing you now. It's not a trick question. It's very simple.
Oh, gee whiz. There's so many of them.
Okay.
I can't think of one at the moment.
Okay.
I love
it's about sentences because that's the first.
Yeah,
well, you could have a verb in a sentence.
Yeah, before that.
You have to full
start
stop.
with a capital letter.
Yes, yeah, very good. That's it. So how does a sentence start?
It's with a capital letter.
And how does it end?
With a full stop.
So what if you didn't have a capital letter and a full stop?
Wouldn't be a sentence.
No, but what would happen to the verse that you were, or the
writing?
The writing. What would happen to what you were reading?
It would just go on continuously.
It would be a jumbled mess and incomprehensible. Now, how is our life?
Yes.
Do we start each activity with a capital letter, and do we end it with a full stop? Do we go backstage and refresh ourselves in the roles that we play? Or do we just keep continuing on with the same old role again and again and again without any refreshment or without any stop? And the interesting thing about roles is they're just roles. They may not actually be who we are. It's just a role, and we can put down one role and we can let it go and pick up another role. And you see this with people that think, oh, I'm a businessman. You know, and they and every part of their being is a business, and they can't let that go. So, and we carry it, and then we could become tired and stale, but it's good to sharpen the axe.
Well, that's what I did yesterday. I thought, no more negativity. I'm just going to change the role I've been playing, you know. And one of the roles I played, I saw many years ago, was victim, martyr. I had to be the martyr, you know, sort of, I'll do it. Don't worry, I'll carry it. I'll do it. And I had to let that one go, you know, and play.
Well, let me know if you want to be burnt at the stake, Mum.
No, thank you, darling. No, thank you. I'm sure. No, thank you. I won't go into past lives, no. But, yeah, I've changed my role, how I was. And it was fun. It really was fun. And laughing and smiling a lot. It was just fun, you know.
And that's important, Rosemary, isn't it? I often look back and think, oh, my goodness, how much laughter was in our family at times.
Yeah.
And
that's very important.
The stories that I used to share about my day were negative. They weren't positive at all. And I think how lighthearted we've been this morning. There's been much laughter through this show, which is fantastic.
Yes. Isn't that interesting that we like to share what happened to us as wrong, what happened to us, you know, the miserable things that happened. But we don't very often share the funny things, you know. And, yeah. So I'm going to keep on smiling.
Well, I think when we ask people about their days, you know, around the dinner table at night, for instance, and we can say, well, what was a funny thing that happened today? Or what was the highlight of your day?
I like that. What was the highlight of your day? Yeah.
Just on that, Annette, I think that's just a brilliant point you raise. But what's the first thing that has to happen before you can talk about your day at the dinner table? Isn't it that you actually have to have dinner together?
I was going to say have dinner together.
So if you want a happy family, if you've got children at school and you want to know what they're doing, have dinner together. And they'll sit at the table and they won't be able to help themselves telling you how their day is if you're happy to listen to them. You know, they might pretend, oh, no, I'm not going to talk about my day. And then after a few minutes, oh, yeah, well, you know, Billy, he just, he fell over and broke his nose. And then, you know, Mandy dobbed into the teacher and all this stuff. Yeah. But it's great. It's just family.
Yes. No, that's lovely. And no phones at the table either. No phones.
That's the thing. There is actually a great joy in giving people your full attention and not having. And you know, we just get sucked into it. We think we're giving people the attention. These are the little things, practical things.
Little things.
I'll tell you what. If you've got a little love account for the family, and you decide to put your phone away from the table for dinner, you can add a little bonus point.
Good. Oh, that's very good. Yes.
Well, I think this has been absolutely wonderful. Rosemary, I trust it was worth the lot of angst that you were unfortunately feeling earlier this morning. Thing is, we did it.
We did it. And look, the smile.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Annette. It's been a pleasure. Really
Oh,
lovely.
well, Peter, thank you so much. Would you like to share with our viewers, because I know you do shows on a regular basis, am I right?
Yeah, I do. We run a philosophy cafe, which is open to anybody. It's London time, 7 p.m. on Fridays, and it's a very big group of people. I think when I say big, I think there's 700 people enrolled. Usually, wow. But the people who turn up on Friday nights are around 150 or so. But it's fun. We have breakout rooms where we discuss a philosophical practice or that can be done. I'll send you the link if you want. And I don't know how that time frame certainly doesn't fit with Australian time because it's 6 a.m. at the moment.
Oh, right. Australia. Well, some people get up early.
Well, some people do. We do have people from all over the world that attend. So the US is a bit easier if this goes to America. And we are thinking of running one in Australian Eastern Time soon. So maybe that will happen. But there's also the School of Philosophy, which I'll send to you, where there's a Facebook site for that, where you can learn about the School of Philosophy and the courses they run. They're a little unique in that what we're doing here, they do regularly as a course in philosophy. So a lot of the stuff that I've mentioned is contained within the philosophy, but it is very practical. So you're encouraged to go away and practice an awareness exercise, practice asking yourself questions, giving full attention to what's in front of you, and particularly the person in front of you, because people find, oh, look, I can be very peaceful and still in nature. You know, when I'm with nature, it's speaking to somebody this morning. We had a runner group this morning at 6 a.m. Oh yes, when I'm with nature, I'm and I said, well, are people not part of nature? We forget that. We forget that, this is why it's good to treat people as trees. It's just, we are like, do we not breathe in the same oxygen that the cats do? Yes. Isn't the same carbon dioxide that the trees would have? So,
yeah.
Yes.
Dear, yes.
And Rosemary, I know you adore being out in nature. You're very fortunate because your property is absolutely magnificent. You won't have to step outside the door.
Yes. It is. We're very fortunate here, living on 84 acres, and we, grow garlic commercially, and the gardens are beautiful, and I love being in the garden. It's lovely. Yes, it's lovely. We say gratitude prayers every day for everything that we have, we're given. Mother Earth gives us. And I did send an email gave you the link to the latest video I did, which is the Waterfall of Light, which my son put on video for me. And it's a lovely thing that we can practice, the Waterfall of Light, bringing light down, let the qualities of love come down with the light into the earth and renew the earth, which is lovely. It's a very short meditation, and I'm suggesting we practice it every day. But if you ask me, did I do it this morning? No, I haven't.
We can have the intention.
Yes.
Now, people can find that on your YouTube channel. Am I right?
Yes, it is. But I just wondered if you could put the link on the Facebook. It's in the...
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I will put it on Angel Heart Radio Facebook page.
Thank you so much, darling.
Definitely, yes. But if people wanted to search for you in YouTube, you have many short meditations there.
Yes, I do. Okay.
Rosemary Butterworth?
Yes, Michael's Messenger, YouTube.
Oh, right. Sorry, I'm glad you straightened that. And you also have Michael's Messenger on Facebook.
Yes, I found out I did. I forgot. Yes, I think so. Yes. But,
Oh,
yes, but I'm on Facebook as Rosemary Butterworth.
right. Very cool.
Yes.
Well, thank you both very, very much. Thank you to our audience, and may we all practice simplicity and remember that love is a doing word, a
Oh,
verb.
yes. Yes. Thank you.
Much love to us all.
Thank you. Blessings.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Annette.